Happy Monday.
Happy. Oh my God, I had the most wonderful thought this morning.
Oh, yeah?
I don't travel for the rest of the year. And once I realized that, I got positively giddy. I get to have a regular schedule, which means I get to have a regular schedule. It's great.
Oh, Brian, you parochial Americans and your just fear of anything novel or different. As you sit there eating your casserole out of your Cool Whip bowl, I want you to realize there's a big world out there.
Oh, God,
places
it's the
like
best.
Australia.
I'm gonna get to do things
Indonesia.
like develop the habit of going jogging every day, of having a consistent diet. It's gonna be great.
Hold on, I gotta get some pizza crust crumbs off my keyboard. What was this?
Oh, yeah, is that on? So you can hear all of us. Hello. Oh, hey, there he is.
Yeah, we got this.
Okay.
We get to build out the studio over the next few weeks. We get to get ready for Black Friday and do our new product release and all that stuff. It got real close there for a second, but it looks like them numbers, they crunched themselves and came back saying maybe, probably, yeah, you're probably gonna be all right.
On.
Oh, we're always tight going into Christmas season because we have to buy all the stock for all the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an extraordinary year in that we bought a place and it's a fixer-upper of a place that needs, work. And between those two, things were or I guess still are real tight, but it looks like we might be about to pull that get out of the Death Star just before it explodes moment.
Awesome. That's good to hear about the health of the business.
That's very good to hear with three people who expect money from you.
Exactly.
All right. Andrew, you good to go for weird things?
Yeah.
All right, guys, you good?
Yeah, we're
Right?
the best. Oh, wait, let's get that chat.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that, guys.
Hey, Brian, I like the blueprint on your shirt.
Wait, do you have yeah, you know what the difference is between them? One
You can
of them,
afford that?
okay, yes. One of them is a marvel of design and excellence, and the other is a SpaceX shirt. Sorry. You know the Rand Charles Eames chair, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right.
I love they were like cool.
Powers of 10, whatnot.
Powers of 10, all that other stuff too.
Yeah. All right, then let's start the show.
What was it? It has to be a biopic on the Ameses. I mean, they're just.
I would imagine. If there is maybe we'll solicit in when we get to pick. We'll do a reverse picks.
What's his name?
So Charles and Ray Eames were a design husband and wife team, and they designed the Eames chair, that is still regarded as one of the most elegant, wonderful things ever designed. They also did
a documentary on the couple titled Eames: The Architect and the Painter was released in 2011 as part of an.
Oh yeah, no, there's been documentaries. I'm just saying, like a big on like bio, because I mean, the Powers of 10 stuff, the documentaries they made, they're just really got visual sense, ahead of the time, and just be interested in BBC that, in this age of like, hey, let's do let's do biopics on people.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. Alrighty. Well,
And I can imagine it. Oscar night. Somebody very comfortably sits in a chair as they accept their award.
Yes.
Eames biopic.
all right. We're gonna start the show. Then.
We just had a microwave start. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Classic.
All right,
So
Hi.
I did what I thought was a fairly hi. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I
In
last
front of the whole wide internet now too. Actually, I was just trying out the new snap filters on there. That's a new make it look like you have a girlfriend.
Harkens back to if only I had the voice of Bonnie doing the Andrew's girlfriend voice from half a decade ago.
All right. She says we can start now. I've got permission now to begin.
Okay, good. All right.
Okay.
That's the fourth and final key to turn.
Fifth. All right, take it away in 3, 2.
Hello and welcome to the Weird Things podcast. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Justin Robert Young,
Hey, what's going on?
Ryan Brushwood,
Man, you were missed. We missed you. All of the Weird Things gang got together, and we were like, "Where's Andrew?"
Andrew didn't get invited.
Oh, probably should have
yeah.
invited you.
Yeah.
That would have been a good way to have you there.
Yeah, hey, didn't know. Bryce Castillo.
Hi, I'm the producer of the show. I speak in the show a little bit. I was also at the thing. That we
Yeah, I
haven't
know. That's
been
why
to.
you're just Bryce Castillo now.
Also, let's pretend that inviting Andrew to the conference would have mattered in terms of Andrew attending the conference.
Yeah.
Where was
Actually,
this conference?
San Jose?
this is
San
good.
Jose.
A thought experiment. If we had suggested that you come up to San Jose for TwitchCon, do you think you would have come?
That's actually within my realm of, hey, I can hop in my car and go. That actually is in my, it's highly possible, but
Holy cow!
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
because if it's a last minute, I don't need to get a plane ticket, whatever, do that.
Maybe I feel like
Justin's giving you this sort of look. I can name you several cons I've showed up: Salt Lake, MizCon. I did the
let's do this.
Colorado one.
let's-
Several of these things I do go show up at.
No.
I've driven down to Anaheim for one.
This is none of this is interesting for anybody listening, but I look forward to the next time that we can all plan on going to a con together.
I say let's save TwitchCon discussion for after things because I think there's a lot.
Oh,
of
you don't want to talk about it
interesting-
for another hour here?
Well, I mean, I do. Just an hour from now, I want to talk about it for an hour.
Yeah. No, we can talk about that. I mean, again, I'm for our audio listeners, don't worry, I'm not angry at them. I'm just used to this by now. Let's go jump into the stories. If I can see the screen through my tears. Something we talked about before was the idea of like, how do we get to like self-driving cars becoming kind of the norm? And one of the things we talk about here is the idea of like, when you're driving, like I've got the Model 3 with the autopilot, which is amazing. And so and other cars have these features too. I'm just going to talk about what I know. You go into this, you click into the feature, and all of a sudden it steers itself. It'll do lane changes if you want it to, maintains the right speed, all that, and warns you when cars have stopped ahead. It stops by itself, and it does that, and it allows for a different kind of driving. It's a very, very different kind of driving, and you can see a few years down the road when we have much better self-navigation, everything else in cars, how that becomes the norm for everything. One of the things we've talked about is the idea that people are like, I'm not going to give up my gas-powered car. Like maybe not, but if you have an electric car, you can go faster, safer. If it's self-driving cars are theoretically safer at higher speeds. Australia is now passing a law that says that in certain highways, Australia is really big. Don't know if you know this. They have highways that are ridiculously long with nothing in between, but they're in the process of passing legislation that says, hey, if you're in like a fully electric car, like a Tesla or like Chevy Bolt or whatever one of these other cars is, you can go 20 miles an hour faster than any other car.
Wow.
Wait.
Oh, so you could maximize your battery charge, and there's less likely that you could run out of battery in a place where it's long stretches and hostile, or
Well, it's not necessarily about the battery life as much as incentivizing people to use electric. They're trying to move more people towards more electric. And one of the ways that they're looking at doing that is saying, yeah, you want, get an electric car, go 20 miles an hour faster.
So is the benefit just what is it the safety side, or is it the environmentally friendly side, or is it the what is it they're incentivizing by doing that?
I think the primary incentivization is the environmental. I think their primary goal is to switch over to decarbonize, is to move towards. And Australia put in place, I think, the largest battery pack, one of the Tesla battery packs out there. They're big, power systems. They're trying to do a lot to go to solar and trying to, the battery packs would have, solar power at night. They're trying to incentivize this.
So I know that the federal 55 mile an hour speed limit that was instituted under the Reagan administration was done so partly or ostensibly to alleviate the gas crisis, right? So
was that under Reagan that was put in place?
I know it was overruled by Reagan. I believe Reagan is the one that instituted it, and then he vetoed it when they tried to get rid of it. And then it was one of the first times I'd ever seen a congressional override. Is that what they call it? Or overruled, or 2/3 majority?
Yeah.
But if, and in that case, it was a national security problem in that we can't be dependent on an energy source that is owned by a cartel on the other side of the planet. And so we will institute everybody go slower so that we can, whether or not it's effective, at least the intention appeared to be, so that we can use less fuel. But if you're looking at renewables, if you're looking at, nuclear powered cars, essentially, because once it, who cares what charges the battery as long as you can grow it at home, then it kind of does make sense to say now all of a sudden the new game is not to think of it in terms of security risks or national security, but instead just in terms of safety. And if you can prove that that it's just as safe to go 75 miles an hour as it is to go 55 miles an hour, then it really does seem like there's no reason not to.
Yeah.
The National Emergency Highway Energy Conservation Act was signed into law January 2nd, 1974 by Richard Nixon.
Oh, shoot, Nixon. Wow.
Well, wouldn't have been some of the...
that was the that was the maximum speed limit law. The uniform speed limit was signed into law became effective 60 days later by requiring the limit as a condition of each state receiving highway funds.
Which is also how they were able to nationwide eventually force the drinking age to 21, is by withholding federal funds for highways. I remember one of the holdouts was, I remember being 19, 20 years old and driving in the car for 10 hours to get to New Orleans. And then just so I could be like, look at me, I'm buying a beer. I don't like beer very much.
Yeah. It's, one of the many interesting ways in which, federal government exerts its authority or be able to do that by controlling funding. So much of everything is decided by that. But it is, it's interesting. It's funny just to hear that we talked about, like, what if, the advantage, it's not so much that you tell everybody, oh, no, you've got to go to this, but you just start conferring advantages. We have HOV lanes that also let you do electric. And now here you have, if you have an electric, go 20. And I think with self-driving, it's like they've talked about converting bus lanes and other stuff. I think it's fast becoming a reality that I think that if you have a car that's safer at higher speeds, and if that reduces congestion in theory, then sounds good to me.
So I guess I've always been kind of curious about those laws in that, like, if it's safe, if the government is deeming that it is safe to go 20 miles faster than they had previously allowed, if you have an electric vehicle, like, it is just, I guess it's like, oh, no, we were just being extra cautious before when we said that it was only 55. You can really go 75, but only if you're a good boy who reduces carbon emissions.
So here's a weird sideways twist on this. It is something that I was told, around the time that they removed the federal regulations and all of a sudden states could decide all their own speed limits. The story I was told is that Texas had a law that said the speed limit has to be what the majority of vehicles are doing anyway. And so in a case where whether it's labeled 55 or not, if it's the middle of the desert and clearly, you've got those gizmos that you go fop fop and it counts how fast you're going and radar tracking or whatever. It's not hard to figure out how fast in general people are going. Then and instead move the speed limit to to reflect that. I mean, I remember it being shocking the first time that it's like, first 65, then 70, then they raise it to 75. And then the first time I saw 80, I thought that was crazy. And then I got out to West Texas where it is the desert. 85 miles an hour is the speed limit. And then in a separate journey, you had the fact that there was this federal requirement of the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, but you had Montana. And Montana, of course, big, wide open, there's no reason to go 55 miles an hour. So what they did is they, as a middle finger to the federal government, they said, okay, if you get caught speeding, you're going to get pulled over, and you're going to be charged the maximum fine of $5, which you must pay on the spot. And then, so I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know how much of that is accurate or true.
You get different, being pulled in different directions, and like we had, the mileage, speed limits were changed because of, we need to conserve gas. And there is data that showed that there were more accidents and stuff like this, that it was safer to go faster and whatnot. And those competing sorts of things of it's like there are people who push, want us all to use public transit, which sounds neat on one aspect, but when it's, 1 a.m. and you don't have any baby formula, and you don't have a car and you live in a city where everybody tells you just take the bus, it's not a helpful solution, and that's the ability for individuals to have the right to travel where they want, how they want individually, whatever is important to me, but other people it's not. And, there are arguments pro and against, but,
well, I think look, if it works, like that's to me is the biggest end all be all. There are some places where public transportation is really rad and it's really good and it's really efficient and people then use it a lot. And then there's places where it's a relic to, it's basically that old, that the gym membership card for the city that, they went to once and now just sits being beaten and weathered in the bottom of their wallet because it's like, it'd be better if we did it. It'd be really better if we went to the gym, but we don't. So there's that.
Yeah.
Yeah. J.C. Calhoun points out there was a brief moment that Montana literally had no speed limit. It said safe and reasonable, speed limit, safe and reasonable.
Well, I'd say, I've been in places where I could go out faster. I'm like, nah, I'm okay. I'm good. I'm at the speed that I want to be at.
Yeah, that's the funny part is, I don't want to jinx it, but it feels like everybody's getting smarter about setting speed limits because I drive what feels right most of the time, and then every so often you see a cop off to the side, and you're like, oh, am I speeding? And you're like, no, I'm doing exactly the speed limit, give or take 3 or 4 miles an hour, right? So I think they're just getting better at setting appropriate stuff.
Yeah. More data, more data.
Yeah.
I do like that is just an element that is, as somebody who used to drive a lot when I would go back and forth between like Fort Lauderdale and Syracuse, like it was always just like, all right, there's the speed of traffic, and then that's usually above the speed limit on some level, and then there's like, okay, I don't know, it just always seems so nebulous. It's like they're one of like the weirdest kinds of laws because it's like I'm not sure if I'm breaking it, like all things being equal. I would like
and you've seen like those prank videos where 3 teenagers or early 20-somethings want to I don't know if they're trying to just make a point or whatever, but they get in a line and then they all slow down to 55 miles an hour, and it's like the apocalypse, like just it's Alderaan exploding only with rage instead of fear. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. In other news, speaking of speed, things that go fast, SpaceX has confirmed that their the McGregor test site, I believe that's the location, that they have begun groundbreaking and putting in the equipment for starting the test for the BFR rocket. They've put in a bunch of tanks to be able to hold like liquid methane and liquid oxygen, which is going to be the fuel and the oxidizer that they're going to be using for this. And they're still on target, hoping to begin hop testing in late next year. So, they've got, shovels moving, things put into place. They're taking this very, very seriously. And one of the things we had heard from Musk previously was that the Block 5, which is the Block 5 Falcon 9, which is the latest iteration of it, which was the one built with everything they learned about reusability. Once they were satisfied with that, they'd be shifting primarily into BFR production. Well, we've had a Block 5 launch twice now, and it looks like we're going to have a Block 5 maybe go for a third launch, maybe by the end of the year, the third time they'll reuse this. And so, if they feel like this design is what it's supposed to be, then, we're going to see SpaceX, moving forward to it. They just applied for SEC approval, I think, was to do $500 million in borrowing for their initiatives, primarily attached to BFR and Starlink.
So SpaceX is a private company for now, right?
Yep.
Do you think they'll ever go public?
Given Elon Musk's opinions on publicly held companies.
And by the way, holy smokes, considering what has happened with Saudi Arabia, probably a good no call not to take the company private with Saudi Arabian money, huh? that was a.
Oh, you're talking about with the Tesla thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Elon, yeah, that was a very like the whole funding secured thing was tied on some level to the Arabian Wealth Fund. Whew. Good call.
Yeah, the timing's not so good on that. And it's I don't want to attach them, but it is interesting to see people criticizing one source of funding while being completely quiet about other sources from governments that are equally questionable. Sure. It's just like, yeah. I think that in the foreseeable future, like Elon has said that the reason Elon, because first name basis, he said that he wants to avoid making SpaceX a public company because once you have a public company, you have shareholders and people like that can be like, why are we going to Mars? It's not cost effective, and it's valid, but he says, as long as it's private, we can say, hey, yeah, we're going to spend a ton of money trying. This is the goal. The company exists to do this thing. Once you're a public company, your goal is to return shareholder value.
Yeah. And that does change things, especially when, what was it, Penn Jillette? I'm sure he borrowed the quote from somebody else, but he says, you don't need freedom to do the smart thing. You need freedom to do the crazy thing. And so far, we've gotten to see Elon Musk do a lot of crazy things because it's his crazy gamble to take, right? And, once you allow people to buy in and you become publicly held, you have to do what the public says, which is, I would imagine, part of why Elon's a bit frustrated and talking about taking, or his intention to take it Tesla private again.
His big frustration is that there are the short sellers. There are the vultures that want to see, like Tesla specifically, fail because traditionally, betting against an upstart American car company has been a very, very, very safe bet, right? There's a reason why we haven't seen a company like Tesla explode in decades on decades on decades in this country. So all the media and PR and everything that goes into making sure that happens, I think creates a environment that Elon Musk is not a fan of and cost him $20 million because he wanted to jumble the splash the waters a bit.
I guess
yeah.
I can picture it though. Once it's as boring as UPS, once like they clearly won and it's like, hey man, do you need something? When you are at a humdrum, like, yeah, oh no, I'm going to buy a ticket for my grandma to go to Mars. Like once it's a commodity item and everything is established, I could totally see them because UPS was not, I remember they were one of the surprising IPOs that was one of the biggest winners of the .com bubble because everybody was buying stuff online and UPS was not an online company. But when it came to getting all the stuff you were buying online, there's only, 3 players in town, Postal Service, FedEx, or UPS. And so when UPS went public, all of a sudden, by virtue of just waiting long enough, they had one of the biggest IPOs in history. I just made up.
Well, yeah, we get your point, and I don't know to say that you're wrong. So, I think once they've built, hey, we're here going to Earth to Mars, we're doing this sort of stuff, and then you go IPO for a couple reasons. One is if you want to cash out, you just want to cash out on it. Two is because if you want to do a radical capital, raise capital, way to do it. There are other ways SpaceX can raise capital. They can borrow money now. They could create a ancillary company that has a publicly held company that has basically leased all of their craft to be able to do the Mars and loop. There's a lot of ways to do it. So we'll see. One thing that's been interesting too is remember the Falcon Heavy launch where they launched, and test launches use dummy payloads, generally concrete blocks. Elon put his own personal roadster on there and we gave us these amazing, shots and all that of it. Because of that launch, because they showed in order to do that, to put that into, a trajectory that intersect Mars orbit, they had to do an extended long burn, which meant let the rocket shut down for a period of time and then turn the engines back on to go do this. Because they did that, they've now got at least 2 new corporate clients that want to use Falcon Heavy launches now because of that. And people have disregarded like, oh, it's a PR stunt. Like, no, it was technical. There was a technical reason why they did this. And now we're seeing this because now companies said, well, because you're able to do that long burn stage, whatever, we want to, buy a Falcon Heavy launch. So, it's space, man.
Hey, by the way, Starman, the one shot that we're paused on right now on this video here, we've talked about this before, like low Earth orbit, where the International Space Station is. Starman and the Tesla have gotten a view that no human has experienced in my lifetime. We've talked about this before. Because we stopped going to the moon before I was born, that means, when you are in the International Space Station, the view of Earth you have is the equivalent of holding a basketball up to the side of your face. It's not the same as being able to take in, it's amazing big blue marbleness. So his car got a better view of the Earth than any person alive during my lifetime.
And therefore, so did we via Skype.
Yeah. Speaking of a better experience than anybody's ever had before, that may not qualify as weird things, but we'd like to think it's an experience, and each episode's a new one you haven't had before. In order to keep making this experience happen.
Oh, I'm picking it up. Yeah, man. Guess what? You know what's a weird experience? Giving money to independent podcasters. Not only does it give you a weird feeling in your belly that I'm told is called pride, it also causes the future to change. Whereas in the past, the show had been sporadic, would go on extended hiatuses, come and go, and not really be around. But then one day, the patrons arrived. Ancient wizards who have credit cards and said, cause weird things to appear every week in my feed and double my amusement by creating a companion show called After Things. However, I do not want to wait for both of them to appear in my feed on different days. I want them both together. Create a cast spell Patronicus. And then now I have a single feed just for myself and all the weird things arriving on the regs.
Patreon.com/weird things. Support the show. Thank you.
All this talk about space, and I know a lot of people are there going, this is great. How do I book my tickets?
Ticketmaster.
Snakes. The answer is snakes.
How about
is there like a link in the SpaceX Instagram bio?
Wait a minute. Hold on. Justin, real quick. Side bet. I know we've been betting all weekend, but one quick $1 side bet. True or false? Has a snake gone to space?
Oh man.
I bet you $1. I'll take either side.
At some point, there's got to be some experiment on like the International Space Station or something that
that's the Nope mission.
Snakes on a station.
Well, they
Nope.
I know bees have gone to space because we wanted to see what shape of honeycomb they would do. But why would you take a snake into space?
Science. I mean, how do you know it's not going to turn into a dragon?
Okay, well, but like we know for sure. I assume there's been no bears in space. But what makes
I guess, but snakes. Well, I guess the question would be: has there been a? Well, I guess there was a dog, right? But
right? That was Laika was the first. Also, Laika died in space.
has a cat gone to space?
Oh, okay. Second action. I'll take both bets. Give me a bet on snakes, and then give me a bet
you're gonna
on
say
cats.
no. You're gonna say no on cat and no on snake.
I'll take whichever one you want. If you say yes to both, yeah. In fact, that sounds great. I'll take no on both.
No on both, because that to me, my thought would be, at some point, if there was ever a cat or a dog that went up for science, like in the last 20 years, then it's more likely that a snake would go for whatever, for scientific
Oh,
observation.
you know what? Third bet. This is now a $3 operation. So first
Okay.
of all, yes, no on snake and cat, and then you got to pick which one got first if one of them had or if both had.
Oh, put them in order? Oh, I think it would be cat snake.
Cat snake. I'll take the opposite on all those. So you're saying yes, there was a cat, yes, there was a snake,
Well, no,
and
you're saying that there is no. So you're saying that even if I beat you on the first two, then your only way to get action back is if I sequenced it incorrectly.
oh no, like I'm taking all
right,
three
move
bets.
on. Just.
Come on, guys.
All right, reveal the answers.
So, from my very quick research, I do not believe a snake has been sent into space.
You
Boo.
do? You do?
I do not.
Oh,
I think there was not a snake sent into space.
so that's one for me.
That's one for you.
Felicite was the first cat to have been launched into space. She was launched in October 18.
Which means by default, that means you're also the
1963.
winner
Don't
of the
say
third.
who yet. You gotta guess. It was fatal.
No, this cat is the only cat to have survived a space flight. The second one did not. That is what Wikipedia is telling me.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
all right.
So,
Well,
the
so
second-
I owe you $1. I won the first bet because there was no snake. I lost the second one because there was a cat, and I lost the third one because
Well, wait a minute though. I'm not wrong on the second, because a cat has been launched into space. So then,
No,
if
that's why you
ever-
won that
if-
one.
Yeah, if
Yeah, he
ever
says
in
he
our
won.
lifetime.
yeah, that's why that's.
I'm glad that you guys kept the bets nice and simple.
No,
Yeah.
Justin,
so
you won 2 out of the 3. The only
won
one you
2 out of the
lost.
3. Okay.
what
Yeah.
country?
Yeah, sorry.
What country murdered a cat in space? The first.
I mean, it's got
There
to
was-
be.
Police that survived. Second cat died. What country murdered a cat in space?
Oh, it was
I
us,
mean,
wasn't it?
Russia's the clubhouse favorite,
No,
right?
Russia would have gotten there first, and then it would have been U.S. playing follow up, and we would have let a cat burn up. Is that what happened?
So you think it was us?
I
So
saw-
your vote is the
Yeah.
United States. Who are the culprits?
Look, man,
The
I saw the movie.
suspects would be the United States, Russia, China, maybe.
I saw the movie First Cat, and I know enough to be afraid that it's the United States.
Oh, this is horrible. So the answer is the French.
Oh, that's wonderful! I
Way
feel
off the board.
not guilty.
Way off the board.
Yeah, but so Felicette, this cat, they even have a commemorative if you go there, you can see this nice little 8x10 of the cat with a little paw print. It's adorable.
Oh,
Of course, the mission was a suborbital flight, which meant it went into space but didn't go into orbit. 5 minutes of weightlessness. Felicette was recovered safely after the capsule parachuted Earth. She was euthanized 3 months later so that scientists could examine her brain.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, hey.
She was found on the streets of Paris and launched into space and then murdered for science.
Ugh.
It's better.
The French.
We had to save the cat
Well,
by killing it.
Yeah.
It really did murder a cat. Wow.
Did they find anything cool?
What do you think?
Hey, it's a cat brain. Hey, look. You're not going to find anything after 5 minutes in weightlessness. You didn't need, we didn't need 50 years of space science after the fact to know that.
Yeah, you might as well just have a cat that went bungee jumping 7 times and then
Exactly.
and then kill that cat. You get pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. Sad.
Aw.
Sad. But if you wanted to you wanted to go into space, how about an app? There's a company called Shuttle, which is creating an app that will make it easy to book your ticket to go into space.
So are they just like really, really, really early in the game? They're just really wanting to establish mind share. So they'll be like, no flights listed until there are flights listed.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, the goal. I think they're,
look,
let's get in on the space thing, and so we'll,
if
we'll
Mars
put an
One-
app so you can buy it.
I mean, yes, all of this is putting carts before horses, but if Mars One can do that for a reality programming show based on being on Mars, then these guys most certainly can do
that was a grift.
booking thing.
Like that was just an out and out like magic beans thing.
They're still around. They're still doing PR stuff, and they appear to be, in the interviews that I've seen, fairly level-headed about, like, yes, we know this is very far out. And we know that, yes to all the reasons to naysay everything, but like, they're not gone. They're still around and doing interviews and all that stuff.
Well, I mean, but are
So
they still
I'm just saying the use of the past tense maybe shouldn't apply.
I mean, like, weren't they like charging so you could submit your thing?
I don't know about that.
Yeah, you had to pay to be able to apply, and they had this sort of thing that was doing it. They've not a lot has come out of them, because I know there was a lot of shakeups there and a lot of criticism there. So I don't know what they've been up to recently.
It feels to me like, basically, until such time as it's possible to book passage to Mars, they're pretty much running a Mars fantasy camp, basically. And if you want to buy into fantasy camp and go through fantasy training so that someday you can fantasy go to Mars, they're happy to help you out. And but I guess, I mean, they are still around, though, right?
I don't know what around means. If they're still a company kind of thing. Are they actively doing on anything? I don't know.
I know as recently as 2 or 3 months ago, there was a panel discussion on some podcast, and like one of the 3 people was a representative from Mars One. So unless something has happened in the last 3 months or so, then they're not.
Well,
gone.
but I mean, does that mean that they're funded? I mean, they have somebody like, hey, we have a domain name, and I have this domain. I don't think they like vanished, but I'm like, I don't know that they raised enough funding to really have. I've heard a lot of controversial stuff about the status of it, but
I guess I am more likely to say, like, all right, this seems like an over aggressive but plausible business model that, knowing what we know about the size of the air travel industry, if you knew 10 years before commercial air travel was going to be a thing, that you could make the world's first hub to buy tickets on airplanes, that would seem to be a good bet, if maybe a little early, right? Whereas Mars One is something where it's like, that just seems like they might as well be selling, like, do you want to live past the Stargate? We're doing a reality show past the Stargate, and you can be on it if you pay us $50 to send in your tape.
Yeah, I'm enthusiastic about space overall, and I think that there are people who want to do similar things. Some I consider more credible than others. Them I don't. But the company that's doing Shuttle, one of the things they're doing, which is cool, is apparently on the app you'll be able to book one of those zero gravity flights. So you'll be able to book a parabolic flight. They have they have 34 seats, and they'll be able to do that. So I mean, that's cool. That's a way of saying, hey, until then we can do this other kind of thing. And then once Virgin Galactic, and once in theory, we keep saying this for the last 4 years, any day now they're going to start announcing, private passenger flights or something. But it's a sign of ambition. And another one, I sent another link to Bryce, which is, there's another startup we've made mention before, that wants to build a space hotel, the Aurora. They have this, I think the Orion or whatever, they've got funding. They just got, I think, a good. I think I had a really nice seed round of funding. They've got this space station they want to build. They're still, pushing the whole tourism model, which I guess might be kind of an easier way to sort of sell early versus where I think the real value is going to be in research. Bigelow Aerospace, which has their own hotel/research station, they've got, they've booked a Falcon 9 flight, at some point to be able to launch. So, no, it's, and we'll see, we'll see what.
I don't think that it's going to be a weird situation where people are booking flights to access some level of space within the next 5 years.
And I would love to see something along the same lines as Mars One in some sense of like a Citizens Mars thing, like a National Geographic, Mars Geographic or something. I just everything the way they went about doing it just was shady to me, But
yeah,
by all means, keep dreaming. Speaking about dreaming, you've got an app to book your trip to space. You've got companies like SpaceX, and we can't forget Blue Origin, which is now funded by the richest man in the world, who's, if not gonna, he just talked more about it. This is this man's mission. Jeff Bezos' mission is same thing Elon Musk is doing, fully reusable access to space and building space stations and stuff. So the richest man in the world wants to build space stations and space habitats and all that, and has a company that, Blue Origin's bidding contracts and extremely well funded, has access to more funding than SpaceX does. He's serious about this. So it's, funny, we're going to access to space, and now there comes a company that wants to make it possible to have babies in space.
Okay.
Have deliver babies or impregnate people or do in vitro 0G fertilization?
All of the above, Brian. Yes, yes, and yes.
All right.
So this company's was it like Space Life Origin? They have a thing called their first goal is to they want to preserve human DNA by putting it into orbit around the Earth. That sounds safe, because
yeah, just expose it to cosmic rays.
DNA, nothing bad can go wrong there. And then what they want to do after that is apparently they want to. I think they want to enable they want to do an IVF in space.
I mean, that seems like, first of all, that all has to be animal experimentation first, right? Like, it would be straight up unethical to do an IVF just to, what if we did an IVF, just a barely accepted in the last 20 years procedure? What if we did that in a highly radiological environment with a human?
Oh, Brian, you and your negativity and your... killing the dream.
My God, 2024. You're telling me in 7 years or 5 years, 6 years? Yeah, it's 2018 right now. 6 years, we're gonna have a baby in space. Boo! No,
a baby born in space. To be clear, because people can't see this. 2021, they're saying conception in space, birth on Earth, and then 2024, the first baby born in space.
Hold on. Actually, now I'm believing all this. Because I guarantee you people have already been doing it in space. And then now, so...
Who's doing it in space?
They're just doing it on the... there was one shuttle mission where newlyweds, of the 7 crew members, 2 of them were newlyweds. You tell me whether or not there's been space boning going on.
Wait, is that known?
Yes, it is known that they got married in the weeks before their mission to space, where they served in a 7-member crew on the space shuttle in space.
I'm not questioning the horniness of newlyweds, Brian. I'm just asking whether or not they've said or hinted at. Or
they've not spoken publicly on the record. I'm sure that NASA expressed.
So is that frowned upon?
Yes. Officially, there was no discussion about there's number 1 and number 2, and we don't talk about any other numbers in space.
So there is no if you just Google has.
that's as far as publicly stated on the record things, there is no confirmation of anybody who's been having relations in space. But like that case alone, like I maybe we exist in a timeline where they got married and didn't have sex in space, but if so, I want off this timeline. I would rather not be in this universe than believe that they didn't do it up there.
Okay, wait. Apparently there have been several attempts at having sex in space.
Attempts.
In February 2013, Dennis Tito's Inspiration Mars Foundation announced that they were going to send a 2-person crew on a 501-day free return flyby mission to Mars and back. All right, well, that didn't happen. Then in June 2015, Pornhub announced that its plans to make the first pornographic film in space. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the odds are better, as Drunk Furball in the chat is saying, I think the odds are better that Sinbad made a genie movie than in this timeline than newlyweds did not have sex on the space shuttle.
Well, I guess my I do love that is your North Star on this. Of like there is no way that the power of newlywed horniness could be reined in by anything, not even a mission to space where they have no privacy, that they would be banging. They would find a way to bang. Again, now we get into a very high-minded version of the high school or middle school conversation on what counts and what doesn't, right?
Which bases and spaces?
yeah. Which space base did you get to?
Which space base?
I mean, yes, like the crew sleeps and there are bunks. I understood. I'm just saying it would probably be a bit of a spectacle. This isn't exactly just slipping into the the broom closet for a quickie, nor is it like the several miles high club. You'd have to, there would be some manner of trying to figure it out, right?
I don't think so. Okay, let me put it this way. Let's say the four of us were in a spaceship and there's 2 other people and they just were newlyweds. I would say, Justin, Andrew, Bryce, listen, I know they just got married. I could think what I would appreciate. If you don't mind, I'm going to call a meeting, an emergency meeting of Monopoly that will be 30 minutes long, and we can only have 4 players. I nominate the 4 of us to go play Monopoly up in the very tightest front cabin, and then we'll make a ship-wide announcement.
They need the whole ship?
You know what? I don't know what they're going to do. I'm just saying that the 4 of us need to spend 30 minutes playing Monopoly at 0 gravity up in the very frontmost. You know what? I'm just going to put this blanket up here. Let me duct tape all this. And then, who likes to play loud Monopoly?
Yeah, we'll have to play loud music too. Huh?
Correct. Constantly shouting and talking.
Like a fun game of
I would initiate that, and I don't care if what they did, but like I gotta believe that everybody knows that they're making history.
Sure. I think that, like, I'm looking through the site, like, going like, man, this has got to be like one of those hoax sites for some movie or something like that. And
sorry, what site are you on?
This is the Space Life Origin, the ones that originally the starting point for this discussion.
Right. Oh, got it. Yeah.
About the whole, it's like I have no problem. The idea that eventually, because you think about like the first kid born on Mars, the first thing is like, yeah, but like, I'm going to my head like, I don't want to be one of these people that's like, oh, it's too soon. But I'm like, no, yeah, this is too soon. We haven't even figured out how to put people into space on a regular basis without throwing up, And then the idea they have this thing like, oh, the safest way we can preserve human life and cells is the space ark. We'll put these things in a little capsule that orbs at 300 miles and up. Yeah, that sounds great. Who's supposed to retrieve this?
Well, apparently they're putting some of these on Earth too, I believe.
Yeah. Well, I know where my money's on.
All right. Mark Lee and Jan Davis were the first and only married couple to fly together in space. They flew aboard the Space Shuttle Endeavour in 1992. Lee and Davis met during training for the flight. So they just met when they were training, secretly married shortly before liftoff. And once they disclosed their marriage to NASA, it was too late to train a substitute. NASA has since changed its policies to forbid married couples from flying together.
I would imagine those are the actions of people who had no intention of having sex in space.
They did it.
Look at those grins. Look at those grins. Those are the grins that only come from people who had the first space sex. They were the original SpaceX.
Here, I think I'm sending Bryce, I think some actual photos of this. Hold on.
Oh, I love the fact that there was so much high-minded back and forth on what is and isn't probable, and then all we had to see was the grins on their faces to know that it was a settled issue.
I just sent Bryce an
Daniel J.
image. We
Newman
actually have an
says-
actual image of the act.
Daniel J. Newman says, because only married people have sex, right? Yeah, no. Our point is that maybe there were pioneers before them, but by virtue of having gotten secretly married, they kept the window open to eventually admit it publicly in a way that would not reflect poorly on NASA because they were married, which was a smart move.
That's really my only question, Brian, was whether or not there had been any kind of confirmation or anybody had hinted or winked.
Nobody has done so, to the best of my knowledge. It's just it's all by implication, but very strong implication.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing too that, like, if they did it, they're not really, in a position to sort of say this, because if they come out right and say, "Hey, we did this," and there's because NASA, you'd still be involved in the program, still involved with this, and
think about the amount of investment they put into the NASA space program. You don't do that kind of thing unless you really believe in their mission and you want them to do well. And for a fact that by speaking the words, we went up and space-boned, you're going to do damage to this institution that you have invested so much of your own career and believe in the mission of. Of course, you there'd be no benefit to that.
Yeah. So it'd just be kind of a wink, wink. So Bryce, you get the photo.
I got this Jezebel article, which is, I believe.
Remember Moonraker? Nobody does it better.
Guys, well, I'll tell you what. This is sad. Mark Lee and Jan Davis divorced in 2006.
Oh. Is it sad? I would get married for, the hookup.
They could. You don't know why they got married.
Maybe they got. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, could be.
Tell Bonnie. Time to get into the program.
What?
Well, now we'll never know, right? Because if they're both remarried, who wants that? Who wants to dump that on your current spouse about hey, it's one thing. It's complicated enough when people have to discuss their old relationships, let alone the one where it's oh yeah, we got secretly married and we banged in space.
Yeah. Although that's the kind of conversation you have in your early flirting days before you're really dating somebody seriously, because oh hey, casual person of the. My interested or whatever person I'm interested in. Here's a fun tidbit about me. I did this. You drop that early on, and then later on.
No, but she can't. No, this is like a state secret.
No,
she can't just put it in her. She can't put it in her Tinder profile.
Well, no, you wouldn't advertise it, but that's pretty good second date material if you want to be interesting to the other party. you don't publicly engrave it or nothing, but it's like, man, I'm going to put those odds as pretty low. If they did pull off that heist, the odds that on a following date neither of them shared that with their partner or partner to be or the person they were courting, I would say are pretty low. That's one I'd just get out there in Front Street. Really,
man. You know, the best part of the story would be if, like, 9 months later, she had a baby.
Did she have a baby 9 months later?
No,
oh, okay.
That would be,
this is weird things.
That would be like. So, do we want to jump into picks?
Yeah,
Sure.
I got a pick. I'm really excited about it. It's a Netflix original. It's called Bodyguard, and it's great.
Okay, sorry.
What's that?
The song from the movie Bodyguard.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought you were disagreeing with my assessment and you didn't like Bodyguard. It's a BBC production. The first 20 minutes are one of the most suspenseful, exciting things I've seen in a hot minute. I really, really dug it, and they seem to be. I'm only 2 episodes in. They seem to be masterful at creating this tantric tension. Throughout the entire thing, various types of tension, ranging from action tension to sexual tension to all this other stuff. I'm really, really digging it. I watched the first 2 episodes while we were on the road, one on the flight out, one on the flight back, and ended up rewatching the first 2 episodes just to seduce Bonnie into getting into the series as well. I'm liking it quite a bit.
You want to give people the elevator pitch about what it's actually about?
Yeah. Okay. So basically, a PTSD war vet, who is, and they do a really great job of representing what it's like to be constantly on guard. He gets assigned to protect one of the ministers. This is in England.
The Home Secretary.
The Home Secretary, who is responsible for sending him and underfunding him. Basically, everything wrong in his life. He's now protecting the person who could be credibly called directly responsible for all of it. And, he's super badass. It's great. I like it a lot.
My pick is going to be Doctor Who. There is a new regime in charge of the venerable franchise. They have replaced the Doctor. I have not watched the most recent episode. And I have some more kind of complicated feelings about it. I liked the first 2 episodes more than I liked the jaunt into modern or American history with Rosa Parks. But I do enjoy the fact that the show again sort of feels like a science fiction series and not as floppy and goofy as Stephen Moffat kind of took it. But I'm excited that the episode that aired this weekend was apparently more of a kind of creature feature sort of episode, which I'm excited to see how they handle that. But it feels a little bit more grounded, which is something that I think the series was desperately in need of. So, Doctor Who.
Shall I get back in?
I don't know if I'm willing to give it the Andrew recommendation yet. I think the Rosa Parks episode would probably drive you up a wall because it drove me up a wall. But I think even then, it was fairly like the plotting has been fairly straightforward. Where for the historical preachiness of where they wanted to take the Rosa Parks episode aside, because it's always good to have the British explain American history to us. It was a very simple plot where it wasn't about, I think Moffat's stories tended to lead to like, oh, well, we have to find the magic amulet, which mixes with the magic water. And if, oh no, there's not enough magic particles in the water, so we need to stir it with the magic walking stick that was in the old man's hands the whole time. It's like, it was just a lot of gobbledygook. Whereas even in some of the elements of the Rosa Parks episode kind of drove me up a wall. The plot was we have to keep history the same. And so now it's a very simple idea. All these things need to happen the same way that they would normally happen, or else our heroes fail. And so it's like, for a show that can go anywhere like Doctor Who, I think that's always the challenge, is how do we keep it grounded? How do we let the story breathe, because we understand what the restrictions are in a world where you're always one gobbledy-flip away from totally rewriting everything that you've set up. So I've enjoyed the fact that they've tried to keep things a little bit more grounded.
Bryce?
I got a chance to spend about 2 hours or so last night with a new game from Lucas Pope. You guys probably don't know Lucas Pope by name, but you certainly know Papers, Please.
Oh, yeah.
He is the guy who made that. He has got a new game out called Return of the Obra Dinn. It is a game that you play an insurance adjuster in 1807, and you board what was thought to be a lost at ship sea, the Obra Dinn, and your job is to investigate the ship and determine who all the various members of the manifest were and how they died and who or what killed them. And it's really an interesting way to tell a narrative and to show a logic puzzle game. It tells you up front, like, hey, sometimes you may have to guess, and sometimes you may have to determine who people are by elimination. But the idea is you board this ship and you find corpses, and you have the death pocket watch. It's a kind of a weird, just unexplained thing. But when you find a corpse or you find information about a corpse, you flash back to the moment that that person died. And so you are able to sort of traverse these different parts of the ship in history, and you'll see who else was around that person and what it looked like when that person died. And you use all of that logic stuff, and you get to hear a little bit of conversation before it happens, and you get to see, so they got stabbed, who's stabbing them and stuff, to like make a really solid logic like mystery. It's really cool. And the other cool thing that I'm sure a lot of people notice is it's in this like 1-bit dithered style, and they have
reminiscent of the old Macintoshes.
Yeah, well, and they have multiple options. So the default one is the Macintosh flavor, but they have like an IBM and a Intellivision.
Do they have like CGA or EGA?
I think so. There are quite a few of them, and you have a lot of options in terms of if you want it to be hard pixels or smoothed and how scaled you want it. And yeah, they have a bunch of different two-tone palettes. So
that's cool.
It looks really gorgeous. There are a lot of really good visual effects that happen. So like when you're in these flashbacks, you see the models of these different characters, but it's hard to tell who any one character is. So you get this book that has illustrations of the whole manifest. And so when you zoom in on a character, they like isolate the body out from the scene, and the illustration appears like in the background, and it looks so smooth and neat that it almost looks like a historical television show. Like, oh, this is the person, and then you see the illustration of them, and it's little stuff that makes you feel like, oh yeah, I actually am probably doing the work that a historian might do, using very small amounts of evidence to try to figure out the situations. And I'll tell you what, the Obra Dinn goes some places. So
awesome.
I love the sort of era we're in with things like Steam and et cetera that make it easier for indie game developers to get their stuff out there and in front of people very quick, like the App Store, just very easily out there. And the obscure ideas for games like Gurn Insurance, and I'm excited because, I want to do my story of somebody working in the Boston Custom House in 1853, examining wool ledgers and pricing disparities. I think now's the time for that.
Yeah.
I mean,
and it's not just
you joke, but that's not far off. I mean, I remember on the Apple IIe playing it wasn't Pirates, it was some trader game that eventually got reskinned as like drug seller or whatever. But you go to different places, you
Lemonade
buy,
Wars.
Yeah. You buy a commodity, you sell it somewhere else. Sometimes you get in a fight. It's great.
Have you seen the longevity of Oregon Trail?
Oh yeah,
Right.
yeah. There's
It's like
something universal.
books now. I got like Choose Your Own Adventure Oregon Trail books and stuff. Like just amazing.
Mhm.
I got something to show you.
Go.
Show us.
I'd been hoping that something like this would happen for a long time, and then it finally happened. And you know I like pop-up books, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
My favorite designer of pop-up books is Matthew Reinhardt, who's amazing. He's just elevated the art in an amazing way, and I could go on about. You take something that not a lot of people try to be good at, and I think his are the best in the world. I have not encountered pop-ups. Every now and then you'll see something with some imagination. His are amazing. Well, Reinhardt had a couple pop-up books come out recently, and the one I'd always hoped for, I always wished there was a really good Harry Potter pop-up book. There have been a couple pop-up books, nothing that was really, I thought, anywhere close to his quality. But finally we have a pop-up by
Oh
Matt
my God.
Reinhardt. Remember the Game of Thrones one that
Yeah.
opens
Yeah.
up? This does that.
Oh Jesus.
So you first, for audio listeners, imagine I just popped open. Hold on.
Something so big it doesn't even fit on camera.
Right?
It's the entire like external view of Hogwarts, the castle.
And then you can like open up their windows and stuff that open up.
Oh,
That's cute.
You've got Reinhardt, typical Reinhardt fashion. You've got all these different pop-ups. This is really I'm going to start a new podcast. Me talking about pop-up books, by the way, because it's so fulfilling. So you've got amazing stuff here that just comes open.
Wow. And so basically for the audio listeners, in each corner there is a little like exploded view of moments that happened outside Hogwarts.
Yeah, or inside, whatever. I mean, it's like every page.
Just in the page that we were looking at that Andrew was showing, and now it's the Quidditch pitch.
Right. So those are the main ones. So this is kind of cool that it does this, that it pops open, and he's done some very imaginative stuff. All right, for Dark Forest. Now, what's great, like the Game of Thrones one that he does, you undo the spine, and the whole thing unfolds into Hogwarts, the entire grounds of Hogwarts. So the whole, what this means is that you undo the back of the book, and then all the individual pages that you saw now spread out flat like a map, like a three-dimensional map of Hogwarts.
Wow.
Very cool.
Cool.
That's awesome.
The Game of Thrones one is still my favorite, but this is really good. I've got another one I'll show you next week. He's got a couple other. I got a Walking Dead that he didn't do that was actually pretty good. So
Cool.
it's my pick, the Matthew Reinhardt Hogwarts guide.
That's awesome. I love those books. And man, Harry Potter, that universe, everybody loves it so much. I really wish that they were able to continue to make good things.
Yeah. I wish they had a good new series.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. It's been weird.
So I spent, when we were there for Politicon on Saturday, John and I just kept talking about better stories you could tell in the Harry Potter world.
Mhm.
And the one that we really liked was you do a longest yard in like Azkaban. So you have like be like, you have him be rung up on false charges and not like in the longest yard where he's like a fallen, hero. And so now it's like prisoners versus guards. And you can actually have a good Quidditch scene where the guards are cheating. They want to win, so they destroy the snitch. And so now you actually can have a sports movie without like the MacGuffin.
Without the magic ruining of like the one element that makes it a dumb sport is taken out of it.
You can
Yeah.
actually do a good Quidditch. You can
Yeah.
do a good sports kind of Quidditch thing because the guards are cheating.
That's pretty good. It's pretty good.
I think that universe, I actually just started showing my girlfriends, maybe saw one or two of them. She never watched all of them in a row. We've finished the MCU, so I've been showing her all of the Potter movies. We start with one, and she loves it, and it's such an amazing universe that You want for MCU, you hope it doesn't turn up like Star Wars,
Well, I mean, I think that's the problem now is with both Harry Potter and Star Wars, with the Wizarding World and Star Wars, is that every story has to be the same. It's like, why in the Newt Scamander series do the villains have to be almost direct analogs to Voldemort and other, racists? Like, there's a million different things that you can do. There's all sorts of corruption. There's all sorts of scandal. There's still greed. And I mean, it's because that world feels so human that you can then have villains come from everywhere. But instead, it's got to be another creepy, weird-looking racist and his creepy, weird-looking racist friends that are ruin things.
Policed by a magic society that has the instant death penalty.
And that's the other thing. Is that then you have to try to figure out, like, okay, well, if we're going to rebuild this, then we have to rebuild this other weird things. And I don't know. It just, like, to me, the Newt Scamander story that you can tell is like, this is he's down trying to save some magical beast, and he realizes slowly that it's like he's not going to make it out of town. Like, that these are, this is like some poaching thing, or nobody can know that they're doing this stuff with these beasts down there. And now he has to slowly put together who's on his side, who's not, and make it out alive, as the town kind of plots against them, instead of like, oh no, we're just going to tell Harry Potter again. Mm-hmm. It's just going to be, now he's like a different version of the person who has to find responsibility and kill the major bad people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if they're trying to set up that Newt Scamander stuff as him always leaving town, but yeah, that would definitely be like something like, oh no, we're not just gonna just go somewhere else.
Well, because that's the other thing you could do in my Azkaban, me and John's Azkaban Longest Yard movie, is who, maybe who's somebody that now later in life has a career maybe in magical law that has to come represent her old friend Victor Crumb, but you could rewrite Hermione into it, and now she has to figure out the corrupt prison guard who's like running these illegal high money Quidditch games or whatever. And
I thought she was running Hogwarts though.
All right, so she's called in. She realizes that something's amiss during she reads it.
Or do your thing. Side note, I was going to float this idea. I thought about, what if we did a podcast that was imaginary movies?
Dude, imaginary movies, the podcast. That would be dope.
Just like pitching ideas for movies?
What's that?
Just like pitching ideas for imaginary movies?
Yeah, like just say, like, let's go, I watched a really good Red Letter where they did they imagined their own like Star Trek series, Galaxy or whatever like that, which did not sound like one I wanted to watch, but and I thought like we've done that, like Justin and I've had these conversations ad nauseum.
I mean, yeah, you could just like literally, like we've done 100 episodes of this podcast already. Like we have mapped out series on series on series, movies on movies on movies. Like it's one of my favorite things to do is just think about like.
Let's talk about this. Let's do an imaginary movies one, and I think that because I like the idea of like, because we got like Halloween part 2, the second part 2, the whatever, we could do this sort of thing like the Longest Yard of Azkaban, whatever, just pitch stuff might be fun.
That's a good idea for a show.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I mean, but that's the thing that's so good about God. How does everybody look at the MCU? MCU's been going for a decade. And it's just like, hey, let's not have Thor feel like Captain America. It's this like revolutionary concept of like, hey, all the like even when half the characters are snarky guy who says the snarky thing, like they all feel different. Like Star-Lord feels different from Iron Man, feels different from Doctor Strange, despite the fact that they're all sardonic, quippy boys.
Quippy boys. It's a great Australian band, the Quippy Boys. Give me
All right.
90 seconds.
Sure.
We don't happen to have a letter for After Things, do we?
I don't think so. I think I forwarded this one already.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we don't.
Dude, do you know what I just love? You guys.
Oh, okay.
Aw.
Yeah, real thing.
Well, thank you. Man, what a fun weekend. Just a blast and a half. I had such a good time throughout all of it, and I was so delighted to share it with you guys.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's always great to see you in person, Justin.
Well, and now apparently you're just gonna move into a karaoke room. Is this the thing now? You're just gonna you're just gonna move in. You're gonna find, hey, how much can I rent a karaoke room for to live forever?
No,
We cut a bulk deal.
because I can sing for free in my apartment, which I do.
You're like, what makes you think that I haven't already done it?
Yeah.
Justin?
I have a microphone at home.
No, it was amazing. So another karaoke adventure where Bryce, now with a fresh crowd, gets to wow everybody with his Japanese singing.
Also, like a surprise, like you guys brought like 8 people to our already crowded room.
But it
8
was a bunch of
strangers, by the way.
fitness
Mostly like pretty fitness, like well-toned strangers.
So, Ben Rice _PL Gandalf. He is a Twitch streamer. That dude deadlifts 800 pounds. He is built to lift weights. And aside from Bryce, another just how does this walking wall of human muscle have such an angelic voice?
He was the guy that did that Ed Sheeran song, right?
Yeah, we're trying to remember what the other song was. The only one that we could remember was "What Does the Fox Say."
Oh yeah, his "What Does the Fox Say" was really good too. Like for a meme, like a jokey song.
A jokey song, no, but he was really good. But no, it was an Ed Sheeran song. But it's like, Jesus Christ, what the hell's happening?
Yeah. Man. But yeah, you guys missed us doing. But before the second posse came in, we did a bunch of fun stuff like the Pokemon theme.
Oh, nice.
But it's like the long version, so you're like doing 4 minutes of the Pokemon theme, and you're like, oh, this is too much. I don't need a second verse.
Yeah, we get it. Get into the show.
Speaking of getting into the show,
Ready.
you guys ready? All right then, 3, 2.
Hello and welcome to After Things. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Brian Brushwood,
Howdy.
Justin Robert Young,
Hello.
and our producer extraordinaire, Mr. Bryce Neshcom Castillo.
Hi everybody.
So I got an email from a kid I've been talking to off and on for years. He's a magician, and his name's Justin, coincidentally. And he'd asked me some advice about, he and his buddy were looking to start a business, and they wanted to start a business selling basically playing cards, puzzles, and other kind of stuff like that. Kind of, because these are areas of interest for him, and they're looking to do something like this.
Magic adjacent sort of.
Kind of,
material?
yeah.
Okay.
And I said, hey, my response was, I said, hey, this would be a great question for my After Things podcast with Brian Brushwood and Justin Young. Mind if we talk about it next week? And he was like, cool about it. And I said, Brian owns scamscuff.com and would have some ideas about making your shop unique.
You should get
said, my quick
Scamscuff,
answer is that this is a really, really hard business to make a profit. The biggest challenge is coming up with enough exclusivities to differentiate yourself from the hundreds of other people that are doing the same thing. And so I said, I just gave him general advice that if you want to start a business, I suggest you dive deep into what problems you can solve for other people, then look for overlap with your skills and interests. So
Solid broad strokes advice.
Yeah.
From the get-go. Brian, if you had someone who was asking your advice to get
about
into
making a store,
a magic adjacent store.
a magic adjacent store with puzzles and cards and custom stuff.
What would you know about that?
Here's what I know is that Scam Stuff may or may not be able to compete in an efficient market. But luckily, Scam Stuff is an evolution of a personality-driven platform in Scam School and the Modern Rogue. And as such, we project onto all of the stuff. There are three types of things that we have in the Scam Stuff store. Some of them are puzzle boxes. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn when I say that the person that we work with the puzzle boxes sends us blank puzzle boxes. And then we sit and come up with a story behind everything. For example, the Outlaws Vault. Outlaws is a custom deck of cards that has a story behind it. And so the Outlaws Vault is a puzzle box that allows you to get in there and get a couple of decks of cards and a challenge coin. In the real world, what's that worth? I don't know. Let's reduce it to its core elements.
Wood and cards.
Yeah, some wood, maybe what, $5 of wood.
A seed will get you all the wood.
$7 of paper,
Right.
and a coin, right? And yet we have it and sell it at $150. And the only way you're able to pull that off is if what you're really selling is not the puzzle box itself, but instead either...
Let me just clarify something. These are limited manufacturer items, folks. So it's not like Brian's like paying $6 for this thing.
Oh no!
I want to make that clear.
They cost
A
us
lot of time goes into the
money.
manufacture of these puzzle boxes.
But the only way to get anywhere is if what you're really selling is the experience, right? If what you're really selling is one of my favorite reframes of the Outlaws Vault was when somebody called it an escape room in reverse, where it's like you are buying an experience. It is a 30 to 40 minute experience. And at the end, you will have unlocked it and solved the mystery. And your reward will be that there's stuff inside for you. But what you're really doing is you're selling that experience and some keepsakes that go along with it. Now, this is the first year. Spoiler alert, we are going to do another puzzle box this year. Yeah, no, I nobody saw it coming. This will be the first year that we intentionally are designing the puzzle box with the possibility of somebody never having heard of Brian Brushwood, never having seen Scam School, never having anything. Could somebody be handed this and still have a fulfilling and exciting journey to go through with it? And I think we've done a really, really good job of that. We'll find out whenever it gets released between now and Cyber Monday. But I would say that it's very tempting to believe in this business that the star of the show is the cards themselves, or that the star of the show is the puzzle boxes, or that the star of the show is the actual things you're selling. I would say whatever success Scam Stuff has had has been remembering that what you're really selling is the confidence that comes from knowing that there's a story. Story matters. The confidence that comes from wearing a ring that has a magic escape shim in there matters. The confidence that comes when you have a magic wallet on you at all times and you know that you can entertain the entire room matters. It's the feelings are what you're selling, and that's the only way to do it where you don't get just crushed by a cold evaluation of what were the materials that went into this, how much could they possibly cost, why on earth would I pay 5 times the material cost that goes in there. Like for example, you sell books, Andrew. Theoretically, you could say, what is this? It's a bunch of squished wood pulp. What does that cost? Like $7 to get printed? Why
Mostly
on earth?
ebooks, Brian. It's nothing.
Right, exactly, right. But you write a story, and even then, it's like, okay, so you wrote a bunch of words. You want me to give you $10 on Kindle Store for that? It's like, no. What I want to give you is an exciting, awesome day hanging out on a hammock and entertaining yourself with an amazingly well thought out story, right? What are you really selling? It's not the words, it's not the paper, it's not the book, it's the story. And it's not even the story, it's the experience you have of when you encounter a really good story.
Sure. And I would say that's the product side. And I'm going to say that, my advice to this, Justin, though, is like, it's assuming you have great product. I have a friend that has a card company, make great cards. They've made some great playing cards. Nobody has ever heard of them because tons of people make playing cards. Tons of people make good cards. There are a few, if not tons, a few people know, go to this manufacturer. This is how you have them made. And now where there's a lot of great playing cards out there you'll never hear of. There's tons that, and iTricks, it got kind of boring because all we did every week was cover somebody's new Kickstarter launch for their own line of playing cards. And I saw some great ones. And the ones that stuck around had a great design. And then I know people who you like, oh man, I used their cards. I'm like, yeah, this guy still hasn't broken even yet. Like, what? I'm like, yeah, this guy, your cards used because to keep the interest, they had to keep coming up with new versions of the decks and buy really huge runs and stuff. And it is a hobby. It is a very hobby. And there are people who have done well by it, but it's not this cash grab that people think that it is. And I know way more people that have lost money making good cards than have made money doing them. And if you want to get into a business and say, hey, I'm going to do this, Brian touched on this briefly at the beginning. Brian has a huge millions plus subscriber audience of people who watch him every week and watch his shows. And he's like, how do I capitalize on this? How do I use this to my advantage? And he's like, why don't I sell products? Maybe at the urging of his friends. And Brian decided to create a store because a lot of people look to me for cool stuff, cool videos. If a small percentage of a fraction of a percent will then go over and go to my store and buy something, that works out really well. But you had that huge YouTube audience before you had this. And so if I was nobody and I wanted to start my own store right now, man, it's such a crowded space with people willing to lose money over it. Doesn't mean it can't be done, but you've got to be willing to put in the effort. Like like we would go see like Dan and Dave, who amazing cardists. Then you'd go look at what they did at conventions when they would, very rarely do finishes, but when they would do that, they would put out, amazing displays with that felt like showrooms and not crappy magic booths. When they would do their own magic cons and stuff, extremely well put on, huge, hundreds of kids would show up to go to this thing. They had that audience. They had a huge audience that they could drive towards it. I don't know of, in the last 10 years, I cannot name a new magic company other than like scam stuff that's really taken off and succeeded. I'm sure there may have been, but and to do one without that, what's driving people to the site thing, it's hard.
And even then, the ones that really stood out in the aughts that really distinguished themselves were like Penguin Illusionist and Theory 11 and Dan and Dave. They all had forums. They were all already gathering places for young magicians. And it was very important that they had those forums because that's what kept people there. And so you were able to directly market to them. There has always been something that kind of brings people there. And it was one of the things that I think, we with iTricks had to make a decision where at a certain point when we had the audience, it was like, well, do we want to be an advertising company or do we want to be a merchandising company? And we decided to be an advertising company because it was a lot easier than being a merchandising company because it would mean developing a whole other skill set. But there was a reason why people would suggest that to us because we had the thing that was hard to get, which is the lore out front that because you're right, a million different people can put out a million different cards and specifically now the real money is not in making the product. The money is in being the source. And being the source is really, really important. I mean, and for scam stuff, it's like, hey, look, we want you theoretically to a regular buying pattern for magicians and collectors is buy maybe 1 or 2 decks a year that look really cool and then a big thing around Christmas for either yourself or people know that you like and they want to buy you. And that's the money. The money is in that relationship playing out over 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. That's where you really make the money.
Yeah, oh man, so many different directions that we could take this. If I was going to give advice, just like I mentioned, that what is it you're really selling? You're not selling, pulp crushed into paper. You're selling a story. You're selling in the experience of sitting in the sun and reading a good novel. Likewise, figure out what is it you want. Do you love the idea of a brand that everybody respects as having the best puzzle boxes? Or do you love the experience of designing very clever puzzle boxes and decks of cards and so on? If it's the latter, then consider partnering with someone, including scamstuff.com, or if not scamstuff.com, then a competitor to scamstuff.com. Find somebody who has a platform for who might be interested in expanding out their own line of competing things. And you could be the person behind the curtain that does all that stuff. But whatever it is, if you want to, let's say you wanted to duplicate exactly Scam Stuff, right? Step one, you would have to design all the things. Step two, you'd have to raise the capital to make all of the things. Step three, you'd have to build the infrastructure to fulfill all of the things. Step four, so let's say you've done all of that and you have a functioning store. Now comes the question of how do I get attention and eyeballs and get everybody excited about these things? And in the case of Scam Stuff, it was because I happen to have step four already handled. I already had the eyeballs. I just had to figure out what to do with it. So I had to learn all those other things. But if what you want to do is just make a thing, consider the possibility that there's somebody out there that already has all the eyeballs and doesn't mind, would love their logo to be stamped on it. You could be the person who made the things, and they'll be happy to pay you for it. But then again, you're in a commodity space because they're happy to pay you for it to the extent that you are more affordable and higher quality than all of the competition out there. So, yeah.
I think that I keep thinking about it. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember when this person told me they wanted to do vaguely this idea. I'm like, well, how are you going to be different? Like, oh, I'm going to have really good selection. Well, the internet gives you everything. That's doesn't mean anything. Like, and people hear about, I used to work with one Magic retailer online a lot because I said, I'll give them an exclusive for a short period of time because I knew if they put it out on their email, it was better than advertising. Everybody knew that it was out there, and people will find a place to buy it. And so it's, the fantasy is, they see illusionist things like this and I want to build this thing, but you've got to, like in any origin story, you need to really understand, Illusionist started because Brad Christian looked at the popularity of David Blaine and said, there are a lot of people that want to learn street magic. Street magic's big and there's an audience that would never think of going to a magic shop. So he produced an amazing, well-produced video series, DVD series on street magic, and then he bought commercial time on cable television that would air whenever the David Blaine specials were rerun, and built his business that. He paid for TV advertising to sell magic, which sounds insane, but Illusionist, because of that, became big, and then all of a sudden they kind of think maybe because of Jonathan Bain, they realized, hey, like non-trick decks, but just designer decks are actually a big thing, and that became a big thing, and then Bain left Illusionist and started Theory 11, and with that, he had a lot of insider respect. Bain had a relationship with Danny Garcia and other creators, and had business knew how to do this, and was able to, people like Chris Kenner backing him. He was able to go start, he had all the insiders on his side, and he had that to launch that, and that's where Illusionist came about. Penguin is these guys understood the Amazon model. You put your distribution center near where you're buying the warehouse that's selling you the stuff, so you save on this. They're able to do same day shipping, things like this, because they were playing a totally different game.
Well, and that was somebody had that idea. How are we going to win on selection? And Penguin won, making that play 15 years ago where they figured out, hey, look, who's the largest distributor? We found the largest distributor of Magic, and we're going to put our warehouse right next to their warehouse. And every day we're going to go buy, we're going to list everything they have in their shop, everything that they have available. Congratulations. Now every Magic trick ever that would ever be released is in our store. We're going to cultivate a mailing list and availability. And
it hit you every week with the like build up that email list. Like they have, I suspect, the largest email list in Magic, and I don't know how they built that up. I know that there are a lot of early days sort of optimization methods that you can't do anymore that, had I been in that business, I certainly probably would have done. And they built up a huge, probably 250,000, name list. I'm only guessing at that, which was great. And so they have this advantage, and they became kind of almost the Amazon of Magic in a sense. And by modeling a lot of things that they did, and the idea of like, put our warehouse next to the distributor.
Which, by the way, the existence of that, the fact that they are, let's just for sake of discussion, call Penguin, the Amazon of Magic, that limits the moves that an upstart like Scam Stuff can come from. Even having the benefit of reaching millions of people month after month after month, we have to tell a different story, especially since you can see an item on Scam Stuff, search for it on literal Amazon or the Amazon of Magic Penguin and find it somewhere else, which means everything we do on Scam Stuff has to be uniquely its own. There are a few commodity items on there. We make virtually no money. It's almost not worth it to have it. We like having it in there because it fills out the lifestyle that we're trying to project. But unless it's an original, those are the only things we can have anything close to a comfortable margin on.
So the answer is, if you're passionate and anything's appeal to you, do it, but understand how other businesses succeed. Understand, don't look at the website, don't look at the outside and go, that's it. And I've had conversations with a lot of people in Magic trying to explain, and 2 or 3 years later I talk to them, they're like, oh yeah, this, and I don't do I told you so's, but it's like, you didn't do your research. You didn't do your research. You like, I'm going to open up a restaurant. 90% of them fail. You didn't know that? You should have known that because, so.
Well, I think there's a real seductive idea that when you look at building your own thing, you look at the players now and you fixate on their inefficiencies, their very superficial inefficiencies. Like at this stage, like you look at YouTube and you're like, oh, well, they suppress free speech and they have a weird algorithm and they have all this. And look, it's not that those things aren't true. They probably are. And in that case, in the case of YouTube, absolutely they are. But you're dealing with, they're at level 157, right? Like, these are problems that are being caused by their compounding success. When it's like, when you want to build something, man, you better understand how they got from level 0 to level 157 before you start counter programming and not assuming like, oh no, what people want is the unfettered thing. Sometimes that works if all the math works out, but a lot of times that's where you get bad ideas because you're just looking at a very specific moment in time for an established brand that you're coming way late to the game, and you're spending a lot more time thinking about where they made a mistake or where they are not delivering a pleasurable experience compared to what works. Why are they here? Why do I know their name? Why are they a ubiquitous brand?
This goes back to the question of like what is it you really want? Is what you want to create a famous brand, or is what you want to be the genius behind clever puzzle boxes? If that's the case, then sure. In the short term, figure out somebody who has a need for puzzle boxes or decks of cards or whatever it is you want to design and say, hey, I'm pretty good at it. Look at these different options. Will this fit into your stuff? I am flexible on these things. The amount of money that I'm going to get paid, the speed at which you want changes made, whether or not my name is associated with it anywhere. There are different types of currency, and you might be able to partner up with somebody, including scamstuff.com. Again, I can't say this enough. Brian at Schwood.com. That's my email. if you have something that plugs into an unmet need of an established platform, then maybe that's a good way to get started so that you build the experience, you build the contacts, you understand how that process goes, and then there'll be a time where you'll be able to go independent. We just did a whole talk at TwitchCon in which we very candidly said one of the most important things that we did was spend a half decade in the salt mines of working for a network for very little pay, because it put us, Justin and I, in a position when we went independent to understand the way the business works, to understand the machinery of what made for a good show. I don't know that trial and error would have been, in an alternate timeline, the better way for us to have found all that stuff out. I'm very grateful for the fact that we were able to plug in and satisfy somebody else's need for more shows and more ad space to sell a bunch of stuff. And we're extremely grateful for the experience that we got out of having done that.
I think that if you're looking to do a thing, you know, and you have to understand what it's like, ask yourself, what am I really trying to do? And then analyze something else and do that. Why does this work? And there's an expression in startups, they talk about you have to be 10x better, which is an arbitrary number to say we're 10x better, but it means Google Plus failed for a lot of reasons. Google Plus failed. One of the primary reasons was that Facebook was, hey, we already have an invasive, social network in our lives. Google Plus had some little, we have these things, circles, and we have this because there are problems with Facebook, but their solutions to those problems weren't compelling enough to deal with the problem of everybody I know is over here. In Google, I have 2 stupid YouTube accounts with my same name because Google Plus said, hey, you've got to create this new account. I think so they could do some BS growth things, to be honest with you. I think it was BS. So I have like part of my audience here, part of there, because I had to create some things. They did all these things to try to get everybody over to Google Plus, to try to get them to do this. This is the most successful marketing company in the history of the planet, was afraid of Facebook and tried to come up with a competing product and failed. And finally, this last week or so, they're finally announcing that they're like pulling sort of the Google Plus integrations out of there, because there wasn't a compelling reason in any business you get into. And it's, if you want to get, like I said, if you want to get into the selling magic business, if you didn't know why Penguin was successful because of this, or you didn't realize why Scam School is what it is because of this, you got to do your homework and understand, not find the narrative that suits you, that appeals to you, find the real story. And origin stories are usually a lie. The story we say about how we got successful, we often don't know. And you've got to figure out, how is this really better? Amazon was like, put the distribution center next to the warehouse owned by somebody else. We don't pay for inventory. Boom, we can have huge inventory without overhead. 2, we solved shipping. Those differences meant the world. They could offer every book in the world, and then they could cut their shipping costs to fractions. So
100%. And I think with Brian and Scam Stuff, it's like the baseboards are YouTube plus mailing list. Those are the ingredients, right? Like that's how you get stuff out. And then it's execution. And you need to know all those parts, and you need to have all those parts. And ultimately, why did Google Plus fail? Because the real problem they were trying to solve was Facebook won't let us index their web pages. And so therefore we're losing out on data. So we need to solve that problem. Here's this thing. It wasn't really user problems. It wasn't like, oh, this is great. Like, all the people I knew that stuck with Google Plus were just friends like Brian who got into the algorithm,
the recommended feed,
incentivizing people to stay there because of the numbers. The only good product that came out of Google Plus was Hangouts, and we knew it from the moment that it was announced.
I'll throw. Always remember that the reason, despite noises that were made at the time of implementation, there is absolutely no doubt that the YouTube comment system is superior now that it is exactly Google Plus's system. At the time, everybody went nuts.
So they made two things. And they were both used better in other places.
Right, correct, correct.
They had a good comment threading, which is what YouTube's comments are now based on, and they have Hangouts, which should have always been its own thing. And if they would have put as much time and effort into figuring out a better way to utilize Hangouts as opposed to thinking of it as a fin on the side of this monstrosity that was Google Plus,
right?
They probably would have had a better, more enduring social network.
Yeah, solve another problem, but the problem they had was Facebook's making money. We want that money. I want to make that money they're making, and I'm going to do the same thing they're doing. Well, it doesn't work like that. So, but there's a lot of opportunities out there. There's a lot of friction. We talk about this a lot. The lot of friction. The reason we're able to do the Weird Things podcast is because there's a producer here, Bryce, which your support for the show and After Things is enables us to have somebody a grown-up come in and make sure that things get that things get sent, that the product gets delivered, it gets produced and done. That there are not enough Bryces in the world. There are not enough people who produce and facilitate and make these things happen. I've had a lot of projects that don't go anywhere where I have content or the ability to do this, but I need somebody else who's there to say, hey, I will go through the checklist and get these things done. And it is hard to find competent people. And then let me say it, there are a lot of people who want to do things, very few people who will deliver and not get bored or walk away from things. And that's, there is ample opportunity out there, and so you just got to want to do the hard thing. Thank you, Bryce.
By the way, feel free, person. Who is this again?
Justin.
Not this Justin, the other Justin.
Well, that's the awkward
email
thing.
Justin. Feel free to email me, Brian@schwood.com, if you have ideas.
Yep. Any picks?
Picks. My pick is TwitchCon. If you haven't been, you should go.
You should have gone.
You should have gone last week. No, it was really fascinating. What an eye-opening experience. I'm going to guess that next year will not be substantially different from this year, insofar as I'm going to bet that if you want to see what it's like for an industry to get born and have its sea legs, if you want to hop into a time traveling machine and watch the beginning of YouTube all over again, go to TwitchCon. Everybody's figuring stuff out, and for the moment everybody's super cool and happy to talk to you about what parts they've figured out and what parts they're figuring out, and that's a special thing. It was really, really great to have that experience.
Well, and that's your whole deal. We went on the expo floor, and you started giving business consultation to
just for free,
literally. Anyway.
Yeah, including to scam artists on the street, which we'll talk about tomorrow night.
Let me interject here too, because when YouTube had a huge rise in its sentence and YouTube became this big platform, there was this other efforts for people to try to create versions of that or try to replicate it or something like that, and that's the hard part, because one, YouTube's already YouTube, that's where you go. Two, YouTube's backed by Google, so YouTube can have kind of unlimited sort of bandwidth, and you don't really know what the costs are. Justin.tv was one of these companies in a space trying to say, hey, there's this other form of video live streaming and interactivity that's neat, and there's a value here. And then as people started to do stream video game playing and this sort of stuff, it carved out a different niche that YouTube wasn't really easily set up to do. And then, you get now Twitch, which is now an Amazon company, and Twitch is there's this really cool space that we can solve this problem because YouTube isn't solving that problem in a really useful way right now. And that's like as Brian said, you're watching a new thing emerge. We've gone through YouTube really, really. It's like it's run by a bunch of freaking marketing, or middle management people. This is what a show is. You need to put 2 shows up every week. You need to do this. You need to do a channel. These things change. These things change over time. And to play that YouTube game can be frustrating. And then here's this other thing that's maybe it's live streaming, maybe it's this, and let's be more flexible about what it means to how to be successful here. So,
yeah,
100%. And what Twitch kind of fell into, and I think through trial and error, was that when we were on it back when it was Justin TV, it was a fairly indistinguishable service from Ustream and MetaCafe and everything else that we used.
Daily Motion. MetaCafe was a curated YouTube competitor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a moment where, for a couple reasons, not the least of which was that, much like YouTube, Justin TV was also a haven for piracy. Did they realize, oh, wait, the places where we're getting really high numbers that aren't piracy are video games. As long as we can understand reasonably that video game companies are not going to raise a stink about people playing their video games live on the internet, then now we can draw that line. And it's part of the reason why Brian and I got, we were no longer welcome doing live stuff, was because that was where they could know for sure, all right, either you're playing a video game or you're not. And that's what we are. This is what the community is. And now let's figure out building. And this is where they always have won, is they figured out chat. They figured out emotes. They figured out a way for streamers to get paid in a way that benefits them. Like, that's crucial.
Well,
and it's just now kind of multiplying and exploding.
What is really exciting about all of the live streaming stuff is that it is kind of going through the same motions as digital cinematography did about 10 years ago in terms of like hardware and software becoming more prevalent, cheaper, easier, lots of way more free alternatives for live streaming than cinematography. But opening up access to so many people means that yes, there will be a lot of people who are trying to ape someone else, and there will also be people trying to do something new, and people trying to do nothing and make old stuff and bring in new stuff. Like the explosion that the accessibility of digital filmmaking equipment created in entertainment en masse is the same sort of catalyst we're looking at now with live streaming and outside of games, not just games. And I think that's a really exciting thing to look forward to.
Also, right now, everyone's famous and no one's famous.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was really kind of cool. Just walking around, you're talking to people, and it's like, they're also partners, and everybody streams. That's the other thing, is that the audience, everyone's a creator. Mm-hmm. Every person who watches is not just a viewer. Like, they're also doing it, and they also want to talk about that, and some of them are gigantic, and some of them aren't. But yeah, everyone's famous and no one's famous, except for Ninja. He's really famous because he has a bus. So,
Hey,
underwear. His underwear line that he was selling catty corner to the convention was pretty ugly too.
Wait, really?
I didn't think so. It was blue and yellow.
Well, we don't have to be.
Also,
catty.
his theme song, little
We don't
bits.
need to get into that either.
It's
for every reason that Brian said. My pick was TwitchCon. You can watch. Shoot, you should probably have a place where people could easily see.
They can easily see it on the Night Attack feed next week, probably.
Oh, great! No,
Yeah.
Next week.
yeah, it'll be on the Night Attack feed. The talk we did together, and then I did another talk. That was really fun, and just in general, what a fun experience, and just meeting so many rad folks. It's hard for us hermits, we've lived on our craggy soil for so long, apart from the world, that now, like, meeting all these people, it really kind of made me excited to kind of collaborate and do more stuff together.
I have a pick for
Yeah.
other things. So over the past couple of days, Netflix dropped a new season of their Castlevania adaptation. And boy, howdy, is this show going places. So I talked about season 1 a little bit, and how the first episode of season 1 kind of does a weird thing of making Dracula, the main villain of this big demonic war, seem so empathetic. Like, you watch the first episode and you think, oh yeah, you know what, we should probably just destroy humanity because this is a bad place. And season 2, which just came out, is almost like becoming Game of War or Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones?
Yeah, like there becomes this big focus on the fact that this is a war, right? This is Dracula and the armies of the undead fighting humanity, and that doesn't just happen overnight. You have to have an actual war, and you have to have leaders and generals, and and there becomes drama of that, and that's really, it's really something interesting to see. Man, y'all should check out Castlevania on Netflix. Y'all should check it out.
Castlevania.
Castlevania. It's a very quick watch too.
Nice.
So, yeah.
My pick is Matthew Reinhardt has a new pop-up book out, and this is by
This
about
is The Nightmare
The
Before
Nightmare
Christmas.
Before Christmas.
Okay, you want to show us a little bit of that?
Yeah, I'll show you a quick. It has, again, some, and like the Reinhardt, like we open it up and we're looking at the big house, and Reinhardt does these really cool compound.
Oh yeah, is
ones,
that
like
the mayor's house? Oh yeah, there's Jack Skellington. Look at him.
it pops up out of it. I mean, really cool. And I'll show you. Some neat
It's
ones,
Christmas
but one of
time.
my favorite ones of all is this.
Okay, so there's Santa. I'm trying to see. Oh, that's like the Christmas version of Halloween Town, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's cute. That's
I mean,
really
you look
well
at
made.
this thing. How much just the
It's tall.
size
It's like
of-
2 or 3 feet tall at least.
I mean, it's impressive. But anyhow, Reinhardt's pop-ups just like explode out of the page.
So-
really, really, really incredible.
So, like for something like that, or you showed us the Harry Potter one on Weird Things. Where does he source the art and illustrations for those? Are those original illustrations, or does he team up with the studios?
Yeah, the studios. I mean, like this pop-up. This one is Reinhardt is the one who did the paper design and whatnot. As far as the artwork and all this, I don't know. It's all sort of art that sort of exists in that world. So as far as who supplied it, I don't know if he's just working from assets that they have, they allow him to use, whatever.
Yeah,
The Harry Potter one.
which was
This was illustrated,
Warner
Harry
Brothers.
Potter illustrated by Kevin and Wilson. So Kevin and Wilson did the illustrations for it.
I
So
see.
it's clear there. The other one looks like it was, maybe just existing assets, but this is Kevin Wilson's the one that figured out.
the
all
like
that.
3D.
So-
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And it looks like they open and close easily. Like that's a
Yeah.
tough thing for pop-up, is to like get everything open and not crush it when you close it.
Yeah, I mean, Reinhardt is, I've got hundreds of pop-up books, and I've looked at, over the years, the evolution of this, and get some of the new ones that come out by they're just not good. They're just generally not that good, because you get somebody who's like a graphic designer who's like, oh, I'll do pop-ups, and then they don't really know, they don't have the experience of one going through, you can make a pop-up. One, to know how to make an intricate pop-up that supports itself and gets bigger and bigger
Right.
is hard. And Reinhardt's improved upon this, built things I've not seen anywhere else. Two, to know how it can be manufactured. And three, work when somebody opens this up. I've seen pop-up books like, man, this just doesn't work because they got cheap on the paper or they didn't know what they're doing. So,
Yeah, this looks great, man.
Yep.
Awesome.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah. The illustrations on it is just fantastic. Just great.
Yeah. Cool. So, he has a website. Great. MatthewReinhardt.com. That's MatthewReinhardt.
Yeah, and we'll have a link in the show notes as always.
Sweet. Cool. Gentlemen, it's been after.
Woo. Alrighty.
Oh.
Sweet. Groovy.
Yeah.
All right, gang, I'm gonna go get me some food.
Ooh, go get you some food. Cord Killer is going to be back Cord Killers in like 2.5 hours or so.
Cool. Very cool.
You doing anything, Andrew?
Going to the Magic Castle tonight. I did a really cool
Ooh.
haunted house last night. There was this one in Thousand Oaks. It was a long drive. It was like a half hour long.
Half hour.
Oh,
That's
nice.
long. Good God.
Yeah. So it was almost as long as the wait in line. It was very cool. So you just this upstairs of this part of the shopping plaza they took over. It's like 27,000 square feet or 270,000 square feet or something huge.
Good God.
Good
Yeah.
God. That's awesome.
Yeah. Room after room after room after room after room. It was cool. At the end of it, my girlfriend this is great. Had a better experience there than Halloween Horror Nights.
Oh, really?
At
Wow.
a fraction of the cost.
I bet. All right, well, we're going to take the stream off. We'll be back in a couple hours with Cord
Okay.
Killers, talk about all sorts of new entertainment stuff. Thank you guys
Cool.
for watching.
Justin, I'm going to call you on Skype for 3 minutes, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Never seen